welcome to Model Kit Stuff and today's first impressions video, which is this ICM kit of a Type 320 W142, whatever that means, saloon with German staff personnel. Now this, I believe, is two kits that were previously released independently, the figures and the vehicle that they've pulled together, but don't they marry up lovely? So the vehicle was released in 2016 and then the figures were added to this for this release, which was 2019. And we've got a typical ICM box, nice glossy cover. You can see the kits there superimposed on a German street background, which guess what is what my plan is for it. And then we've got, tells you it's at age 14 plus. We've got a little bit of imagery of the actual vehicle, the Mercedes staff car on the side, and then the usual ICM style packaging with a separate lid and a gatefold box. So let's have a look at what we get inside. So we get an instruction sheet for our figures, an instruction manual for the vehicle, and then lots of plastic. So we have a full colour glossy stapled instruction manual. We get a little bit of history here in English and Ukrainian, and then you get technical specifications, and then the colours that they are calling out, and they're using Model Master as the colours here, but then they tell you the colours that they want, and then we have a little key at the bottom there, quite simple. Then as we open in, we have a sprue map which is showing you our parts. So we've got what looks like vinyl tyres, two plastic sprues and a clear sprue there for the vehicle. And nothing on the figures. That's because they're on separate instructions, I'm guessing. So two big sprues there. Part count doesn't look too high. And construction starts with the engine block. So we've got two halves, sump and top. Then we've got the air filter and manifolds being put in. Parts that I don't know what they are. That's a fan though, definitely, and that's a timing belt. So they're going on. So all the basic parts are there. If you were going to show the engine off, no doubt you want to put some cables in for the spark plugs and the like. Then we start building up the frame, the subframe. So that, I'm guessing, is for the running boards, and it looks like the two come together to make an extended frame, making them twice as thick. So we're building one side, then building the other, I think, by the looks of it. Step 11, and we're continuing with the build of the chassis, and it's a very detailed looking chassis. Where they need to be putting the detail in, they're making it two parts. Where they can get away with it, they're making it one. And that's one of the things that I find is a distinguishing factor of an ICM kit, is they don't really skimp on the detail, but they sometimes find shortcuts in the way they do it. So you get less of a part count than you would do from mini art, for example, but achieve overall the same sort of result. Yeah, so very nice. We've got the front suspension going on there, and we can see very nice indeed. And then we switch to 16, and we've got the front and back hubs going on into the rubber tyres. And again, this is all, the hub is all moulded into one, and you've got the chrome bit and you've got the steel part of the wheel, which other manufacturers would do separate parts, and that just makes it a little bit easier to paint. So some careful painting needed on those wheels. Then the springs going in and the wheels being attached. What I'm guessing is the fuel tank, and then you've got the steering rod going in, and then that engine gets put in place. The supports for the front mudguards and the bumper, and our radiator is a separate piece. That's good, we can get that painted up, but if you're not having the bonnet open, you're not going to see that at all. So just consider how much work you need to be putting in depending on how you're displaying it. The exhaust is a single piece by the looks of it, unless it's a sub-assembly from earlier. I think it might be. And then we've got a single floor pan, which again looks quite detailed. Painted up nice, should be okay. Separate pedals and gear shift and handbrake. And then we've got front windscreen going in, the sun visors, rear view mirror, and the motor for the windscreen wipers there. And then we've got the dashboard, got some decals to go on, and we've got the cigarette lighter, the ashtray, and probably the heating control as well, or it could be the choke, of course. Then we're putting that in, adding the steering column, and that's quite a nice busy little front end we've got there. Okay, seat bottoms are made up, and that's joined up seat by the looks of it. Steering wheel, 2 parts, with no photo etch. That's going to need some careful cleanup and careful painting. Then we're putting the seat backs in. So I'm guessing, as it's 4-door, that these seats don't fold forward, so that's why they can do that. Then we've got full side pieces, which means we've not got opening doors, and that's a little disappointing. It speeds up your build time if you wanted the doors shut. Your door cards on the inside are joined together, and you're sandwiching the glazing between the inner and outer parts. But if you wanted the doors open, we'd have to have a look at the plastic and see whether you could scribe it through, but you're then going to have to separate your door cards and so on. So probably blank off the ends with some plastic card. Probably doable, but a lot of work. So yeah, perhaps a bit of a shame. Then we've got all the door fittings going on, the handles, door release and window winders for both sides. And then we are doing the rear section. So we're putting the rear glass in. We've got a boot, solid boot, no lid that opens there. So they're suggesting that you put the 2 parts together and the back piece and then stick it on. Some careful dry fitting is going to be required to see how easy that's going to be. I wonder if putting one of the side pieces in, then the back piece, and then the other side piece might be easier. Depends on how the relationship with these parts onto this base here, but that is going to be very tricky to get right as you've got an open end. Then in step 48, we've got the brace bars for above the engine and the radiator going in, single piece, plastic moulded, just the ornament missing. Then we've got little plastic clips to go on for the bonnet release and the bonnet top. So again, this isn't moulded to be shown open, so why they've given you so much engine, I don't know. Obviously you can score it along the edge of the hinge there and model it open. You'd have to understand how it's propped open. That usually is on a hinge there and will fold in, so you just need to do a little bit of research if you're going to do that modification. Then we've got an open top roof, so it's not a full cabriolet, it's just a sliding roof for a bit of ventilation. So you can see we've got handles on the inside and we've got the folded up edges, so that should look quite nice. As long as you've cleaned up your seams, that should look really good. Spare wheel going on both sides, and then we have an option of open roof or closed roof pinned down. I guess if you were clever, you might be able to do half and half, who knows, because I think this sort of was pinned down and you could fold it back as far as you wanted. Then we've got rear bumper. Not sure of those handles or quite what they are. Fuel filler cap and tail lights. Then we've got front lights and the Mercedes radiator ornament, indicator flappers, outer handles, and the little military light there. Question mark as an option. Then we have windscreen wipers, spot lamps or extra driving lamps, and that completes our build. So 61 steps in total. I think that's going to look really nice. Now the extra driving light doesn't appear on some of the paint schemes but does on the others, so you need to pick your paint scheme before you decide what you're doing. So let's just have a look at these paint schemes. So this first one, it says Saloon Germany 1941. Doesn't tell you the unit, so you'd have to go and do some research to understand what unit that is. But you've got your decals being called out there, and it's basically telling you the colours for the tail lights, the reflectors. Then we've got a different shade of grey because we are in a Luftwaffe vehicle, which is France 42. Then we've got Norway 42. This time a black, the classic black, so like almost a Gestapo vehicle or something like that maybe. And then we've got Italy 43, back in army markings. Again, not quite sure what they are. So if you want to do an earlier time period, like I do, then you want to think about which vehicle suits your needs the best. I think it's probably the Luftwaffe one. There we go. Let's have a look at the figure instructions. Next we have the instructions for the figures. So we've got 4 figures. Looks like a driver, some form of secretary or assistant, and 2 general staff. And that comes on 1 sprue with this our sprue mat there. And then we have our paint shout outs at the bottom again, or model master. Looking at the decals next, and we have 1 sheet of decals, number plates there for the various different options, and vehicle markings. We do have some nice little dials there, and some various flags and insignia that could be mounted on the vehicle should you wish. They don't look bad at all, do they? So first sprue out, and we've got the main large parts for the vehicle, the sides, the folding roof there and there. We've got the insides of the door liners, the bonnet, seats, grille, dash, floor pan, part of the subframe structure, and this front piece here. Now this is disconnected, and I can't remember if I've taken it off or if it's just broken off, so I'll have a look at that first. It's got a little bit of ejector pin marks underneath, but it's not too bad and easy to fill. It's nicely formed. You've got the lip around the edge as you'd expect, so that's quite nice. You're going to have to clean up the mould line there, but other than that, it's in pretty good. The gates are on the detail, which is a little bit disappointing, but it's not major at all. It's not a big issue at all. Yeah, that looks quite good. That if we look at the rest of the sprue, so we've got a single moulded grille, which under a wash will look great. Quite often I think they can look a bit better than the etched grills. I'm in 2 camps with etched grills, to be honest. I'm sure done properly an X-Grill could look probably better than that, but there's nothing wrong with that in my mind. The dashboard is nice and crisp. The detail is really nice and tight and clean and fresh looking. We're going to put our decals on there. No clear lenses, but a bit of gloss varnish will sort that. Seats have got some nice detail in. There's no markings of where they've been sat or anything, depressions or anything, but that looks okay as it is. Nice detail on the of the hinges and the Mercedes badge there. Inside we've got a couple of ejector pin marks. I remember you can have the roof back, so that's quite important. The detail looks sort of not quite natural. If you look at the pockets here, they're quite that they would be material of some type, and you'd have a bit of sag in them. There's just it almost looks like a CAD drawing rather than an actual thing. So for me, it's a little bit clinical, I think is what I'm looking for. It's a little bit clinical in its presentation, but looks, the detail is nice where you want it. I mean, clinical is exactly what you want on things like this. And you've got the little details there on the roof, looks really good. Fuel tank looks nice and sharp. Some nice little stud detail on the folding roof there where you fasten it down. And if we look on the inside, there's a little bit of ejector pin marks that we're going to have to deal with in that roof area there, and otherwise that looks all right, doesn't it? There's a thick piece under the bonnet there, which is where the hinge is, which means it will be easier to possibly modify that for have it open if you wished. But there is nothing wrong with that. A little bit clinical on some of the soft surfaces, but otherwise I think that's really nice. Shame we can't open the doors though. So our other main sprue for the vehicle, and we've got all the smaller parts. So we've got the engine, the springs. They look all right with a paint and a dry brush, but they're not as nice as the mini art ones. There's some lovely detail here on these springs and the leaf springs and so on look really nice. The engine detail is lovely. Lots of little tiny parts here which are all moulded really crisply. Really like those. Then we've got like the door handles and bits and pieces there, and all the gates are on areas that will make it easier to clean them up, which I like. They could have flipped them round and put them on the connection point, so you could just cut them off, which is what Mini Art would do. But it won't be difficult to clean them up, just a bit fiddly. There is some flash on some of these parts, but again, it won't be difficult to clean them up. Nicely detailed transmission there. And those are those little sun visors we saw, which are nice. Then we've got the wheels. They're nicely captured. And the inside of the hubs with the little brake details. We've even got some relief fastener there. And then we've got the parts for the subframe, steering wheel outer and inner, which is nicely done with all the little finger clasps on, and the little plastic Mercedes logo. So there is no photo etch in this, it's all plastic. So there's some really nice moulding going on here. Really, really nice. So next is the glazed parts, and they are crystal clear, really nicely done. We do have moulded on seams for the rear and front screens there. There's a little bit of sink evident in these sides here, but it seems to disappear when you turn it over. So you need to be focused on which way around you want your glazing, and the lenses are lovely, really clear. Although I would have expected there to be some form of engraving on the lenses for reflecting the light, but they are really clear as they are. We have the vinyl tyres now. Modelers tend to be a little bit divided on these, whether they like them or not. For me, I don't mind them if they're done well. Tamiya do them quite well, for example. These, they're okay. We've got no sidewall markings or anything like that on. The tread pattern's okay. Needs a little bit of a sand, and there's a little bit of a burr there that we're going to take off. But they're not the best. They're not brilliant, but they're not bad. I prefer to have seen plastic ones like Mini Art would do with multiple layers, or resin ones or something. But we can get by on those. Once weathered, probably will look okay. So then we have our sprue which contains all the figures. So if we start here, we have the female. We've got her torso and the top half of her legs, all in one piece, as in the dress, and then you've got the back half of the skirt to go on. You've got a full leg to go inside. There's no particular place for these to be mounted, so you can change the positions a little bit, I guess. The legs look natural. You've got all the muscle definition looks okay, and the shoes maybe a little soft molded, but okay. Then you've got two arms to stick on, which look quite natural and have got some detail on, and she's carrying a little purse of some type in hands that could be painted as skin or gloves. Then we have a head with a typical haircut of the time, so that all looks good. Skirt hang looks natural, and so does the folds of the tunic. When we look at this is the figure I'm calling the driver. So guy in the cloth cap, and we've got sort of a half arm there. He's like holding onto the door handle. Two legs to go on the bottom. The hang of the trousers all looks natural. The creases of the boot. I think that looks quite a nice figure, actually. Typically, these build up quite well and don't have much issues in gaps and stuff. Then we have a figure carrying a briefcase, so possibly a map case. That's a two-part piece, so we've got a bag there. He's got his pistol arm, quite a serious looking face, and he does look a little older than the previous two figures. Separate cap, and what looks like sort of field marshal, that sort of thing. We've got some medals and decorations on and what have you. Yeah, so looks a fairly senior type of guy. And then we've got this other figure, and he looks older again, and has the riding breech style trousers, which are typical for generals and high-ranking members of the Wehrmacht. So they look okay. You've even got the little stripes marked in. and another peaked cap. All the clothing looks to hang fairly natural. Figures look good. I think they're a nice addition to this vehicle. There we have it, ICM's Type 320 Mercedes staff car with German staff personnel. What are my first impressions? I think the vehicle kit is really nice. The moulding is really crisp and fresh, and it really captures the look of that vehicle. The fact that you've got 4 paint options is lovely. The fact that you've got options on opening the roof is nice, and you can see the interior, which is a bit of a rarity. It's a bit of a shame that we can't open the doors and open the bonnet without butchery, and I think by the way it's been made, it would be difficult to open the doors altogether. And it looks a little bit clinical on the door cards, but other than that, it's a really, really nice model. When you consider that there is no photo etching there, it's very well done. It doesn't stand up quite as good as some of the mini art vehicles that we've reviewed, but it really holds its own. I think I would like to see the tyres improved for plastic ones, or improve the vinyl ones so that they've got some tyre wall markings. Even just a manufacturer's logo would be enough. But yeah, I think it looks really nice. The figures are well done. Not quite as clinical as the door cards, but there is a sort of computerized look to them. It's difficult to put my words on it, but basically that it looks like it's been drawn on a computer rather than looking like actual material. The figures on here look more realistic than the figures there, but they'll paint up fine and look really good, I've no doubt, and it's all in the painting to bring those to life. I think it's a lovely kit. I think putting the figures with the vehicle is a great idea. It's certainly going to look great on my diorama when I get round to doing it. So I'm looking forward to building it, to be honest. It looks like a fairly straightforward build. It has been simplified, and if you're not going to have the bonnet open, you can miss out some of the early steps with the engine. So there you have it. Nice little kit. If you're in the market for one of these, you now know what you get inside. Hope that was informative. Take care, everyone. Enjoy your modelling, and I will see you very soon.